I woke to the sound of wood screaming. It was 2:51 a.m. My 32nd birthday already bleeding into the dark. My phone glowed on the nightstand with a single text from Mom. Just open the door. Emily. He only wants to talk. Don't make this worse. I stared at the words until they blurred, heart slamming so hard I tasted metal. Then the pounding started, fists, not knocks, rattling the cheap frame of my apartment door in Midtown Phoenix. Emily, open up or I swear to God I'll take it off the hinges. Ray's voice carried that familiar bourbon edge, the one I'd spent years trying to outrun. My stepfather. 6'4" of former construction foreman turned full-time tyrant. I fumbled for my phone, thumbed 911, whispered the address while my pulse roared in my ears. The dispatcher asked questions. I barely heard them over the splintering. Inside my head, a quieter voice was already screaming. She sent him here. My own mother gave him the green light. The door buckled. Shards sprayed across the tile like broken promises. Ray filled the opening, red-eyed, shirt untucked, the smell of whiskey and rage rolling off him in waves. He saw me standing in the hallway, pajama shorts, bare feet, phone still clutched like a lifeline, and his mouth twisted into something that used to be a smile. You think you can steal her from me? He snarled. You think you can fill her head with all that women's shelter bullshit, and she'll just walk away? I backed up. Ray, please. Go home. We can talk tomorrow when you're sober. He laughed, short, ugly. Tomorrow she won't need talking. Tonight she needs to learn. He lunged. I dodged. His fist grazed my shoulder, slammed into the wall instead. Plaster rained. I felt the crack before the pain, sharp, bright, blooming across my collarbone. Then he had me by the wrist, twisting until I gasped. My phone clattered somewhere behind the couch. You sent her those papers, he hissed, breath hot against my cheek. Hotlines. Escape plans. You think I wouldn't find out? Another blow, ribs this time. Air exploded out of me. I folded, knees hitting tile. Through the haze, I saw my phone's screen light up again. Another text from Mom. I couldn't read the words from here, but I didn't need to. I already knew the shape of her betrayal. Sirens wailed in the distance. Faint at first, then closer. Ray froze, listening. For one heartbeat, I thought he might run. Instead, he looked down at me, sprawled and bleeding, and something shifted in his eyes, not remorse, but calculation. This ain't over, he muttered. Then he turned and walked out, leaving the ruined door swinging on one hinge. I stayed on the floor until the police arrived. They asked questions. I answered in fragments. They photographed the damage, the bruises already purpling across my chest and arm. They asked if I knew where he might go. I gave them the address of the house in Scottsdale where Mom still lived with him, where she'd lived for 17 years. Ever since Dad died, and Ray walked into our lives with a smile and a promise to take care of us. They asked about the texts. I showed them. The officer's face didn't change, but his jaw tightened. Your mother sent these? Yes. He nodded once. We'll need to speak with her. I didn't cry until they left. Then the tears came hot and silent, soaking the carpet beneath my cheek. Because the worst part wasn't the pain in my ribs or the blood on my lip. The worst part was realizing the woman who used to braid my hair and read me stories had chosen, once again, to protect her cage instead of her daughter. My name is Emily Carter. I'm a domestic violence advocate at a small nonprofit in downtown Phoenix. I sit across from women every day and listen to stories that sound eerily like my own childhood. I hand them pamphlets, safety plans, burner phones. I tell them they are not alone, And yet here I was, 32 years old, bleeding on my own floor because I'd tried to save the one woman who wouldn't save herself. I met Ray when I was 11. Dad had been gone 9 months, brain aneurysm, sudden and merciless. Mom and I were still learning how to breathe in a house that felt too big without him. We lived in a modest ranch style in Mesa, surviving on her nursing salary and whatever Dad's life insurance hadn't eaten up in medical bills. Then Ray Harlan walked into the ER where Mom worked. Broken wrist from a job site accident. He was 43, broad-shouldered, silver at the temples, the kind of man who filled a room without trying. He asked Mom for coffee while she set his cast. She laughed, actually laughed, for the first time since Dad died. 3 months later they were dating. 6 months after that, married at the county courthouse. I wore a blue sundress Mom picked out. Ray promised me he'd be the father I deserved. He bought me my first real set of oil paints because Mom told him I liked to draw. For a while, it felt like sunlight after endless rain. Then the shadows crept in. First it was little things, Ray asking to see Mom's pay stubs to help with the budget. Then insisting she quit the night shift because a woman shouldn't be out alone that late. Then the comments about her weight, her hair, the way she talked too much at parties. Mom laughed them off at first. Laughed less as the years passed. By the time I was 15, the house had become a place where voices stayed low and footsteps stayed soft. I remember the night he threw the lamp. Mom had bought me a new sketchbook, nothing extravagant. Just $20 from her grocery money. Ray found the receipt. Called her careless. Called her selfish. When she tried to explain, he swept his arm across the coffee table. Glass shattered. Mom dropped to her knees to pick up the pieces. A shard sliced her palm. Blood dripped onto the carpet. She apologized while she bled. I stood in the hallway, frozen. When our eyes met, hers looked empty, like something inside her had already left. After that, the excuses became routine. I walked into a door. I fell down the stairs. I'm just clumsy lately. I hated her for staying. Hated myself for not being able to make her leave. I threw myself into school, then college, ASU on a scholarship. I majored in social work because I wanted to understand how love could twist into chains. I graduated, moved into my own place in Phoenix, started working at Desert Hope Advocacy Center. Every day I helped women build exit plans. Every night I wondered why Mom never used the one I'd tried to give her. I met Noah at a continuing education seminar on trauma-informed care. He was a parole officer, calm, steady, the kind of man who listened more than he spoke. 6 months in, he asked why I never talked about my family. I told him it was complicated. He didn't push, but he noticed the way I flinched at loud knocks. The way I always sat facing the door. Last year, I started sending Mom resources again, carefully, through her work email at the hospital. Articles. Hotline numbers. Legal aid contacts in Maricopa County. I never got a reply. I told myself she was reading them, keeping them hidden, waiting for the right moment. I was wrong. The night Ray broke my door, I learned exactly how wrong. In the hospital, under 2 bright lights, they stitched my lip and wrapped my ribs. Noah arrived at dawn, eyes red from the drive down from Flagstaff. He didn't ask stupid questions. He just sat beside me and held my hand until the morphine let me sleep. Detective Lena Ortiz came at 9. She was small, sharp-eyed.
No nonsense.
She read me my rights, even though I wasn't the one in trouble. Then she asked me to walk her through it again. I did. Every detail. The texts. The way Ray knew exactly which window to climb if the door didn't open. The way Mom's messages arrived minutes before he did. Detective Ortiz didn't flinch. We pick him up at the Scottsdale house an hour ago. He's in custody. No bail. He's got priors for assault from the 90s nobody knew about. I swallowed. And Mom, we're talking to her now. She's cooperating. I closed my eyes. Cooperating. What a polite word for whatever she was doing. They discharged me that afternoon. Noah drove me home, new apartment, new locks, courtesy of Desert Hope's emergency fund. He stayed until I fell asleep on the couch, then left a note. I'm here when you're ready. I didn't call Mom for 3 days. When I finally did, she answered on the second ring. Emily. Her voice sounded thinner than I remembered. Smaller. Did they tell you what happened? I asked. Yes. Silence stretched between us like a taut wire. You sent him to my apartment, I said. Flat.
No anger.
Not yet. He had a knife to my throat. Emily. He said if I didn't text you, he'd come anyway. Said he'd make it worse if I lied. I waited. I thought if I warned you in the messages, you'd call the police before he got inside. I thought you'd run. I did call. He still got in. I know. A sob cracked her voice. I know. I stared at the wall. Why didn't you leave years ago? I tried. Once. When you were 17. He found me at the bus station. Told me he'd report me for abandoning you. Said he'd make sure you never got financial aid for college. I believed him. Another silence. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't answer. I'm leaving him, she said suddenly. I filed for a protective order this morning. I'm staying at a shelter in Tempe. They're helping me with divorce papers. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. But I don't expect you to forgive me, she continued. I don't even expect you to believe me. I just needed you to know I'm trying. Finally. I didn't say anything for a long time. Then, I need time.
Mom.
I know. I hung up. That night I sat on my balcony overlooking the city lights and cried until my ribs ached worse than before. Not just for the bruises. For the girl who used to believe her mother could fix anything. For the woman who still wanted to believe it. The next 6 weeks were paperwork and waiting. Ray was charged with aggravated assault, burglary in the first degree, and criminal trespass, plus violation of a protective order once Mom's paperwork went through. Arizona law is clear. If you break into someone's home intending to harm, it's a felony. No gray area. I gave my statement twice. Showed the texts. Let them photograph every bruise as it changed color. Detective Ortiz called me updates. Ray's lawyer tried to argue self-defense. Claimed I'd provoked him by interfering in his marriage. The DA laughed that out of court. Mom testified at the preliminary hearing. She walked in wearing a plain gray sweater. Hair pulled back. No makeup to hide the yellowing fingerprints around her throat. She looked straight at the judge and said, I spent 17 years believing I deserved what he did. I was wrong. And I almost let him kill my daughter because I was too scared to fight. Ray watched her from the defense table. For the first time in my memory, he looked small. The judge bound him over for trial.
No baile.
Afterward, Mom waited for me in the hallway. She didn't try to hug me. Just stood there, hands clasped tight. I kept a journal, she said. Every incident.
Dates.
Photos. I gave it all to the prosecutor. They're using it to show pattern and history. I nodded. I'm in therapy, she went on. Twice a week. Group and individual. They're teaching me how to stop blaming myself. Good. She took a shaky breath. I don't expect anything from you, Emily. I just want you to know I'm not running anymore. I studied her face. The lines around her eyes were deeper, but her gaze was steady. I'm not ready to trust you, I said quietly. I know, but I'm not ready to lose you either. Her eyes filled. She nodded once, turned, and walked away. I stood there until the hallway emptied, feeling the slow, painful shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the tiniest crack in the wall I'd built. Trial lasted 9 days. The courtroom smelled of old wood and coffee. I sat in the gallery beside Noah, gripping his hand until my knuckles whitened. The DA presented evidence methodically. 911 call. Photos of my apartment. Text timestamped and traced to Mom's phone. Security footage from my building showing Ray forcing the door. Then Mom took the stand. She spoke in a low, even voice. Described the first time he hit her, how he'd cried afterward. Promised it would never happen again. How the apologies turned into threats. How he controlled the money, the phone, the car keys. How he'd told her, over and over, that no one would believe her. When the DA asked about the night of my birthday, her voice cracked once. He held a hunting knife to my throat and made me send those messages. He said if I warned you properly, he'd kill us both. I thought coded warnings were the only thing I could do without getting us both killed. The jury listened. Some leaned forward. One woman wiped her eyes. Ray's lawyer tried to discredit her. You never reported any of this in 17 years. Why now? Mom looked straight at him. Because silence almost cost my daughter her life. Because I'm done being afraid of a man who only feels powerful when he's hurting women. The courtroom went still. Ray took the stand the next day. He wore a cheap suit. Tried to play the remorseful husband. Said he'd been drinking. Said he only wanted to talk sense into me. Said I'd been poisoning Mom against him for years. The DA asked one question. Did you or did you not kick down Emily Carter's door at 3 a.m? Ray hesitated. Yes. Did you or did you not strike her multiple times, causing serious injury? A longer pause. Yes. The jury didn't need much longer. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing set for 6 weeks later. Afterward, Mom found me outside the courthouse. She didn't speak at first. Just stood in the sunlight, looking smaller and larger at the same time. I'm proud of you, I said. She blinked fast. I'm proud of you too. We didn't hug. Not yet. But we stood there together, breathing the same air. And it felt like the first honest moment in 17 years. Sentencing day was quiet. Ray got 18 years. Parole eligibility after 12. The judge called him a danger to the community and to his own family. He didn't look at us when they led him away. Mom moved into a small apartment in Glendale. She works part-time at a library now, her first job in years that isn't under someone else's thumb. She goes to therapy. She volunteers at Desert Hope once a month, telling her story so other women know they're not alone. We meet for coffee every other Saturday. Neutral ground. Public place. No pressure.
Some days we talk about Dad.
Some days we talk about nothing at all. Some days we sit in silence, and it's still progress. I still have nightmares. My ribs still ache when the weather changes. I still flinch at loud knocks. But I'm learning, slowly, that surviving isn't the same as healing. Healing is messy. It requires showing up, even when you're terrified. Mom is learning too. Last month, she gave me a small box. Inside were photos from before Ray. Me on Dad's shoulders. Mom laughing in a sundress. A note in her handwriting. I kept these hidden. I wanted to remember who we were before I forgot. I cried when I read it. Not because everything is fixed. Because it's possible to start again. Noah asked me the other night if I forgive her. I told him I don't know yet. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a road. Some days I walk it. Some days I sit down and refuse to move. But I'm walking more often than I'm sitting. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 33 now. I help women leave monsters. I'm learning, slowly, how to stop carrying mine inside me. Mom's name is Laura Foster again. She's 56. She's free. Not perfect. Not unbroken. But free. We're not the family we used to be. We're something new.
Scarred.
Cautious. Honest. And in the quiet spaces between us, there's something that feels dangerously close to hope. Not because Ray is gone, but because we finally chose ourselves.